from the Aerospace Corporation with my colleague Joe Hale.
Yeah, I was formerly with the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center up until last month and have now retired. So.
But still with us and still working on the Matrix. So I wanted to relay a success story. So 2 years ago, Joe and I got together at the request of NCOSI and with the sponsorship of the Office of the Secretary of Defense to talk about how we can identify capabilities in modeling and assess those so that leaders have a way forward, consistent way forward to assess their organizations and whether they have enough modeling, the right type of modeling, and what they need to do organizationally. So this success story really is a tremendous attribute with regard to how NCOSI does business. So I wanted to do a shout out to Tech Ops. They're the ones that shepherded us through the whole process. And we now have 2 published documents that will be available in the NCOSI store. So you can watch out for those and you can download those as an NCOSI member. So this talk is really talking about leading the transformation. And I can't talk about all the things that leaders need to do in transformation, but what I can tell you is how leaders can take advantage of the products that we've given you to transform their organizations. So many of you probably saw Troy Peterson's talk yesterday on the different attributes of modeling and how his word wall, and I have a small snapshot of my word wall, which are very similar, is an idea of how leaders get bombarded by different concepts, by different jargon, by different thoughts about what do they need to do in order to lead their organization forward in modeling. So it's very confusing, and what we want to do is take away that confusion, organize the thoughts on how you can think about those different pieces of capability, and then put those together in a way that makes sense so you can assess your organization. So we're answering the question, what capabilities do I need for my organization to succeed in modeling? And that starts with the idea of what are my modeling objectives, which starts with the idea of what are my organizational transformation objectives. So that's a theme that I wanted to reprise through this talk. You start with your organizational transformation objectives, you define your modeling objectives, you think about your capabilities, and then you get to work. That's really important because many organizations get to work without doing the other pieces, and they get into trouble. So that's what this chart is about. We found that whether you're working in architecting or system engineering, if you want to go from the current state of architecting where you have a collection of programs underneath a portfolio and you want to organize that better, or whether you're in the system state where you're moving from document to model-based engineering, having the right modeling capabilities is essential. So whether you're architecting, engineering, or implementing, it's all related in the sense that you have to have the right capabilities. This slide shows that when you think about the enterprise vision and goals, they have very specific vision and goals that are different than system engineering, and that you have to think about what those are to define your modeling objectives. From your modeling objectives, then, you want to think about what model elements and data you need to actually have to satisfy your organizational objectives. And I'll give you an example. So I was working with a customer, and he was looking at his models, and I asked him, so is this doing the right job for you? And he goes, no, I don't even know what this is doing for me. I have a huge modeling effort, but it's not helping me with my transition of how to figure out what my configurations are on site. Why? Because they didn't come up with the first goals, they didn't think about the capabilities, and they didn't tie it to the elements that they need. So they have a lot of elements that are useless. All right, so what do we do? On the bottom, that we have put together a couple of workshops at Aerospace. One is on figuring out the problem framing. James Martin from NCOSI and Aerospace runs this. I run the one with Joe on the model-based capabilities matrix, which is to figure out the capabilities. And the third one is one that Ryan Noguchi puts on with James Martin, which is data elements. So bing, 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 you think about how to start with your organizational transformation objectives, modeling objectives, capabilities, and you get to modeling in a way that makes sense. Okay, so in order to do that, we want to use the matrix. So we'll talk about what the matrix is in a little bit, but we found that there's a lot of interesting use cases for it. So this slide talks about the use cases. So whether you're trying to think about an organizational plan or transformation plan or assess your goals in your future, you can use it for that. You can also use it for on-site analysis, and one of my favorite uses came up just recently. We call it matrix bingo. So if you think about a bingo card, and let's say you're sitting in a review, and you're the expert in this review, and someone says, modeling capability, oh, okay, you circle that. Or, IP problems, oh, you circle that. Well, from this map, from our matrix, you can see what those results are on what they've covered in the review, and I can guarantee they did not cover the capabilities that are listed in the matrix. So how do you use that then? Well, the way you use it is you can go away and figure out what are the things that they didn't talk about. What are the maturities and the stages that they are, and where do they want to go? And how does it map to their transitions? So it's a very capable and powerful tool to use. So that's why we put that together. So what is it? So it is it can be visualized as an Excel spreadsheet. When we developed this, we had several working groups. So at the IW2020 2018, we ran working groups where we ferreted out the essential elements from the 15288 series, the point 1, the point 2, the 15289. We mapped it to the OSD digital engineering strategy goals, so it's closely mapped to that. We also, for the commercial side, mapped it to areas of roles. So big areas, but specific roles. So if you're a system engineer, program manager, IT, modeler, if you're in contracts or if you're in legal, you have specific responsibilities to make that capability go forward. And you may not know it, you might not have heard about it, but guess what? You've got that job. So it's been a really interesting effort to come up with the right capability rows that we've done over time through a series of different workshops and challenge team meetings. And so we've got that, and then we've got 42 different rows that we've identified. So let me turn over the next couple slides to Joe, where he'll talk about the development of the matrix.
The structure of the matrix, each of the rows is a different attribute that we thought was important for somebody to consider when they try to mature their model-based capabilities. The columns coming across, stage 0 is really just document-based. That's where a lot of people are today. The far right-hand column, stage 4, is what that attribute would look like in a fully mature model-based organization. And then incremental steps for the intervening stages 1 through 2, or through 3, for the between document-based and fully model-based. I know this is an eye chart, but this is an example of one screenshot of the matrix itself, which includes, I think Al said, 42 different attributes to be considered for an organization to consider when they're trying to mature their model-based capabilities. For each of the attributes, we also have a description of what that capability looks like. You can kind of see an example here of model management description for that particular attribute. So the capability descriptions, we have it so it prints out on an 11 by 17 sheet, but we can only get to, and still be readable, we can only get up through stage 4. We have a separate sheet then. This is the sheet itself for each of the attributes and the description for the capabilities. Several organizations have already gone and tried to use the matrix. The reports that we're getting back are good reports. People seem to think it's helpful. I was talking to somebody from Leidos Saturday and said they had used it to try to figure out where they were and also to be able to figure out where they wanted to go next. And that with that level of detail, they were able to get through procurement very rapidly. Everything was already figured out for him, and actually had his budget doubled by using this as a basis for trying to establish where he wants to go. Let's see what else to hit here. We have two different views of the matrix, the same rows but just organized differently. One is role-based, so you might have workforce, IT infrastructure, processes listed, and they're grouped in that way. And the other view is aligned to the DoD digital engineering strategy goals, the 5 goals that they have, and they're grouped that way. So that's particularly helpful for DoD or contractors supporting DoD, so they can align their work to the digital engineering strategy goals. We make a point that this thing is fully tailorable. Some of the words that we use were perhaps unique to NASA or to DoD, and you can tailor these things back to what's really the type of wording and that you would use in your organization to make it more relevant for your organization. I'll mention some of the use cases. Let me just kind of run over these real quick. So if you're asked to come up with your strategic vision, you might go all the way to stage 4 or 3, depends on how far you want to try to go, and use that as a basis for defining what your strategic, your long-term vision. You can take a particular row or a group of rows then also to help you make a roadmap, and you can use the columns then as definition for your milestones along your roadmap there. It's been mentioned already, but uses a yardstick to try to assess where you are, where you stand. You can kind of make a heat map, color-coded heat map of where you are, and that's very useful to try to show that then to management, so they can kind of eyeball it and kind of see how far along they've come in each one of those attributes. I might note you don't have to get to each stage at the same time. Some attributes you may be far along, some attributes may not even be interesting to you, and you may not be that far along. Once you have the yardstick, then you can help that to try to do some tactical planning, kind of see where you want to go in this next budget cycle and which ones you want to try to work on. And so it's helped to try to guide you in doing that. Al mentioned the bingo version of things. You can also have this to help you evaluate bidders for people who want to try to come in and help you advance your capabilities. You can kind of see which things you want to include in the RFP by using the matrix to help try to do that too. It can also be used to help in supporting source selection for is when you put an RFP out and try to select a source for your support. And I think that's the end of my charts there.
All right. So these are just some findings that we have from all positive findings from using the matrix. Of course, there are always questions about what does this capability mean and how do I use it, which is fine because since it's fully tailorable, if you don't understand a certain capability, tailor it to your needs. So when you download this matrix, it's an Excel spreadsheet. So the first thing you can do is go through and make it sing for your organization. But we found that it's a great tool for communicating across groups. It's a consistent way of doing it. You make sure you have all of the capabilities listed so nothing is forgotten. People don't feel like they've been orphaned because they're represented. So there's a lot of great user feedback that we've had. We've had additional feedback too that people would like measures and metrics and standardized reports. So I'm going to enlist your help in helping us get that far, and I'll show you how to do that in a bit. So we have the final and produced products. We have the PDF user's guide. We have the Excel spreadsheet. Both of those are available to you. We're going to be running a workshop tomorrow from 10 to 12 in Pier 3, and that's where you get real practice. So in 2 hours, we'll give you copies of the matrix. We'll give you scenarios. You'll work in teams. We'll simulate a whole activity. You'll get it done in 2 hours, and you'll be extremely happy about this, saying, wow, that's the best thing I've ever seen. Guaranteed. Joe's guaranteeing it. So if you want to download material now, you can go to Work Groups, Challenge Team. Here's some instructions on how to get there. First, you have to update your profile to include challenge teams as part of your profile. Okay, so Joe and I are the two co-leads. We have a challenge team that we've been running for 2 years now. It's over 162 people. If you want to join the challenge team, just give us your email address. It's really the easiest challenge team you've ever joined because really at this point we're sending you notices of the new releases, what's new, and ask for your feedback. We do that in between our major events such as the INCOSE, IW, and IS. We have a wiki page, I wanted to show you the activities that it took to develop this whole thing. So we've check, 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 check. We've done a lot of workshops, a lot of presentations across a lot of different organizations, and because we've had such a great level of contribution, this is how we've gotten this far, so I really appreciate it. Okay, so how do you learn more? Tomorrow we're going to run a workshop from 10 to 12. You can download the materials from Connect. It should be downloadable from the INCOSE store soon. We've got, my corporation, the Aerospace Corporation, just put out a free tool, so you can do this online for free. You go through this website, aerospace.org.mbca, Model-Based Capabilities Assessment. You register yourself, your email address, you take the online assessment, we turn it into like a survey questionnaire. You get emailed back a report plus both versions of the matrix color-coded for your current capabilities and future capabilities. Then you can go edit it and use it how you like. You can re-enter that as many times as you want to do that. If you have more projects, you can do that as well. So I really urge you doing that. I've handed out flyers. Hopefully we'll see that. That's how we'll gather information to start doing measures, metrics, and report. And so that's our next goal. And we're hoping to do that at the System Engineering Forum, maybe in May. That's an aerospace 3-day event open to everybody. I've put flyers out there on the hall tables. I'm the program chair for that as well. So with that, that's my last slide. I want you to have this resource slide. I'll leave it up. So we'd be happy to take any questions if we have time.
You mentioned you were looking for input on measures. Any more information on how you're going about doing that?
Sure. So one of the interesting things that hasn't happened is we haven't gotten user feedback saying, this is our completed matrix, and can you take a look at it, and can you store this, and can you then put it into your mental model or database? So we don't have that right now because we don't get that. That's why we put together this website so that we can start to gather those things. And what we're looking at is being able to run it by organization type or by business or type of industry. And then we'd be able to give you some information and visualizations on where you may sit within that industry, or how industry currently sits. Where is it? Where are there problems? How far have they gotten? What does it really look like? So that's the type of thing that we're looking at.
Follow-up question. I come from a large organizations with different sites all over the place, and each one has a different capability. Do we fill one out for each site, if potentially, or how do you do that when it's such a continuum?
Well, so that's your question to yourself. So, so we provide the tools, and then you've got to figure out organizationally how do you want to do it. So, different organizations have come to us and said, well, we've got different sectors, or we have different organizations. I've got many programs or projects underneath one. How do I do that? Well, start with each project or program that you think could benefit, and then start to collect that data and assess it. And then other ones have to figure out whether they want to use this tool as a universal approach across, or do they want to have an ad hoc approach across their organization. Because when you, at the higher levels of leadership, they want to have a standard way of assessing everything. So this tool is very valuable for that. When I talk to elements of DoD and the armed services, they're like, oh, wow, if we could institute this service-wide or center-wide, then I'll have a really good landscape of where every program and project is, and then I can provide resources, or I'll know which ones really are behind or which ones are ahead, who are the leaders I can tap to be the front runner and show examples. So there's a lot of capability here in having this type of matrix completed.
Hi, Al. Paul Sullivan from Northrop Grumman. So as you know, a big organization like Northrop, or even just a smaller organization that has 250 people, probably has multiple projects. And so the maturity level of the various projects can vary. So how are you accommodating the fact that I may report that we're knocking it out of the park, but maybe your brother and sister projects aren't doing the same level, and we don't want to falsely report the overall organization as such?
Okay, so I'll tell you a war story. So one of the participants in last year's IW workshop, our 2-hour workshop, was someone who was a product manager in healthcare. And he said, I'm trying to go model-based, but I'm not getting any help from management. I'm not getting any help from colleagues. But I see that this tool is extremely useful because now I can lay out what I need to do. And if I can show success here, then I can become the front runner. And then I can start to attract the money, and I can start to attract the support. So many times the efforts are ground up, bottoms up, as opposed to top down. Here's the budget, here's the infrastructure, here's the tools. So we're finding that from the bottom up, it's almost a better approach, but it has to be bottom up and top down. Does that answer your question?
Right, yeah, because also it's, if I were to go out there and report, hey, this is what my AmNews project is doing, I'm looking for Tamara and for Paul, and I'm wondering when they're going to hit me in the back of the head. No, all seriousness aside, though, I can't speak for the whole company, and then we get into all sorts of, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Let me
Okay.
amplify one thing there too. You can do it by project, you can do it for the whole enterprise, by one organization. It kind of gives you the information you need to help advance your capabilities. If you have different levels of capabilities across the organization, this is also a tool to help share. This is what we did. This is how we addressed this issue. We have an answer for that to help you guys bootstrap yourselves up a little faster on some of these things. So it's a tool for that as well. And one other point, some of the capabilities in here may be like for workforce development, training organization, then can just focus just on that piece, and they can see how they can kind of stay organized and ahead of the game in terms of trying to train folks to be able to utilize all the different capabilities in there. Same thing for the IT infrastructure. You may give that to CIO for them to kind of see, well, this is where the model-based systems engineering folks kind of expect us to try to advance, so that will help kind of guide them for their particular responsibilities in there.
Thank you, Joe and Al.
Right, and to tie off, or to dovetail off of what Joe just said, one of the big benefits here is really to work modelers to IT, because we get into that realm where you've got so many licenses for your project or for your program, and then when do you go broader? And how do you get IT involved with that? How does it work with the infrastructure? What permissions do I need to load it on the servers? So getting them involved early as a role is really critical. And having this type of a tool to understand that relationship is essential, and what the different stages are of interfacing with IT, and having the right type of policies involved and the right type of roles-based permissions to access the different tools and the models and the data is really critical. So that is a big piece of model management that has to be tackled.
Any more questions? Go ahead and get lined up or step to the mic. I do have one for you.
Yes.
So what would you say is perhaps the next products that you would maybe spawn off of this? What do you see coming up next? I've got a couple of ideas, but I don't want to load it too much.
Ooh, I love ideas.
Because you've got an opportunity here for lots of input, and how would you might want to best receive that input?
Let me tell another war story. So one of the participants in last year's workshop was a member from Otis Elevator, and he was really turned on by this. And overnight he went and he created a front end dashboard to the matrix on Excel, and it talked about where they were and how the distance in the different stages and the different areas, and he put together this great dashboard tool. And I'm thinking one of the ways that we can really serve the community such as yourselves is to put on a front-end dashboard. The other one I already mentioned is the measures and metrics, and coming up with some of that. Okay. So those are two pieces. The other one is how to do a roll-up of programs to projects to enterprise, and so to organizations. So that would be the other way.
Thank you. Okay. Well, it looks like we got some folks getting ready to go to the next session. So thank you very much, Al and Joe.
Thank you so much.